Hi, I'm Noel, and we are here talking about the Covid-19 situation in the music industry. I run a talent agency called Inside Out Talent, but I used to work for music venues, for Live Nation and Festival Republic, and I curate stages at festivals and run some small festivals as well. So because I work in all these different departments, we've got in touch with everyone that we've kind of known over the years, and trying to find out how it's really impacting individuals through all this, and what words of wisdom they can also come up with to help us through it all. So today I'm joined by Suzi Green. Suzi, thank you for coming. And if you could introduce yourself a little bit and tell us how you got into the industry, and then we'll crack on with the miserable stuff.
Okay, it's not all bad. There is good too. I'm like you. I've worn loads of hats over the years, and I'm constantly wondering what I'm going to do when I grow up. And I still feel like that. And I've been working music about on and off 30 years. Yeah. I got into it originally because I was taking photographs, and I worked for what was then a really tiny little record label called Ninja Tune, who are now a pretty big label. And I was that person that was making everyone tea and picking up the rubbish and just trying to get involved. And I had a lucky break, although I kind of believe you make your own luck. And they wanted to run a club night. They did a one night at a club at the time called the Blue Note. And it was madly sold out and loads of interest. So they wanted to run it on a regular basis. And they had a guy who was doing that, or who was going to do that when it started. And I warned you about the cat. And he was about to go off traveling. So I was like, yeah, me, I'll do that. I had no idea what that meant, but I just thought, yeah, it sounds great. Club nights, love it. And literally that's how I started, and learned on the job, and was fortunate to work with some really amazing, lovely people. And then from that, we were offered a couple of one-off nights around the country, and then residencies, and then in Europe as well. So we started running something in Paris and in Italy, and it just sort of blew up. And it was just at the point where the label had a couple of artists who were gaining more profile, and I was lucky enough, right place, right time, to kind of surf the wave. And I just really got into club nights and bands, and I've always been madly into music. And then there was a band on the label who wanted to go on tour. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Great. Where are we going? I remember the agent saying, well, you're going to need a tour bus. And I mean, I was so naive. I was like, great, where do I get one? And the first time I stepped on a tour bus was one that I'd hired for that tour. And anyway, they ran rings around me, the guys. So
who was the band, sorry?
The Herbalizer.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine with a name like that, what they like doing. So anyway, it was an interesting baptism of fire, and I did a few more tours with them. And then there was various acts on Ninja who wanted to tour. And all of a sudden, along with that, with the bands who wanted to tour and the club nights that we were doing, suddenly I had a job title. And I spent about 10 years doing that, and worked with all sorts of people during that time. And all I can really describe it as is I burnt out, and I had enough. And then I thought, now what the hell am I going to do? And I ended up, I retrained as a nutritionist. And whilst I was doing that, I got into doing quite a lot of festival work. I mean, this is going back 15 years or so.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like there was any connection between well-being and healthcare and the tour life, if you like. It was still at that point very macho, very male, a different world. So I qualified as a nutritionist. I carried on doing various things in the music industry. I did a lot of show repping. Then about 5-6 years ago now, I got totally out of the blue a call from a manager who I'd worked with, and he was looking for a tour manager. but he wanted a tour manager who would very much be involved in looking after his artists. And his artist has sort of quite well publicized in the past. She's had, eating disorders, and I'm not divulging any secrets here, it's public knowledge. And quite a delicate person, really, who needed quite a gentle hand on tour. And that was PJ Harvey. And I went for an interview and I got the job. And then I shat myself with fear, thinking, oh my God, now I've got the job, I've got to do the job. And how on earth am I going to do this? Because it had probably been 10 years since I've been off the road properly, at least. So we did 99 shows and we toured for 2 years, just under 2 years, on and off. And it's the biggest tour she's ever done.
And during that time, did you find a renewed love of touring then?
Yeah, it was totally different because I had a different skill set, for starters, and Polly and her band are older. They're not a bunch of kids. They've been there, they've done it. And we put together a team as well, very much in mind that it was going to be a very wholesome, good experience. And because it's all about the team, it's all about the people you surround yourself with. And it wasn't a hard party tour. We all looked out for each other. And, Polly said of her band, she had a 10-piece band. She said it was her 9 husbands. And we just rallied round, and it was an amazing experience. And we did a lot of stuff with nutrition, things I hadn't even thought of as, being viable in that world.
Were you kind of learning as you went then? So stringing the two together, so let's say it hadn't really been done in that way before. So you're kind of developing it as you went along, and that's maybe why you enjoyed it so much, and it lasted, a tour for 2 years. A lot of people would come out of that pulling their hair out, whereas you actually got something out of it.
Well, there were lots of things, because obviously my training is nutrition. I haven't got any formal training in whatever you want to call well-being, or whatever the catchword is this week. But I know with a lot of the clients I had previously to going back on the road, you're never just looking at what someone puts on their plate. You're looking at the whole picture. There's a whole psychological profile that goes with that. And it's about looking after people and trying to keep people balanced and healthy, and trying to help them get the best night's sleep they can. And that's no mean feat, touring with different beds, tour buses, late nights, early mornings,
Yeah, it's kind of developed into a unique area of tour management, and something that's probably in a much greater demand. And after this episode that we're going through now, it's probably going to be more so in demand. Have you applied that now then to everyone that you've toured with?
Not everybody, but mostly. I've worked with sort of various since. I was meant to be out this summer with Placebo, and they were really into the nutrition and the kind of holistic side of things. That's what I was meant to be doing, but all that got cancelled. And then I was meant to be out with Katie Melua this autumn.
Yeah. And
again, she also has had a very public nervous breakdown, went to the heady heights of massive fame, and then came down at, the slide on the other side of that. So
directly about COVID then, and how this has hit you. So you were due to be out on the road now. So when was your last date, and when's your next date, and how many shows have you lost in the meantime?
Oh God, and that I've counted. My last tour came off the road end of November last year.
Oh wow.
And then I was taking 3 months off, which I do every year. I find a big window of time to recharge, recalibrate. And I knew this year was going to be, I knew. I thought this year was going to be busy. So it was time off. So I was due to go all summer with Placebo on a big festival tour. and then jump off that and then pretty much go on to a 45-date tour with Katie. So it was going to be a full year. And the start of this year was going to be Coachella.
Yeah.
And a bunch of dates. Marina, who I was with last year, her last few things before she went back into the studio to write. And Coachella was one of the first things to get cancelled in all this.
Yeah.
And when I heard the rumours and then when it actually went, I freaked out, to be honest. I thought, why me? Why have I lost that? Because we didn't realise how big this thing was going to be. And then progressively, quickly, everything unravelled. And within the next 2 weeks, you know, loads of people around me had work cancelled. And
yeah, as a tour manager, you're block booking stuff. So you're out on the road for months. So where other people are losing a gig here and there, or you know, if you're based here and you're doing shows around the country, whatever it is, there's other things you're doing maybe, but you're losing. So I guess you've lost a year then. In reality, it's just been chopped off. And have they all been rearranged for next year, or it's still unknown at this point?
So Placebo have rebooked next summer based on a large part of what was going to be this summer. So that may well be my first proper tour. Katie, we've still got 4 dates out of the 45 dates in the diary. So I'm currently looking at how on earth we're going to do that.
When's the first one?
Paris, 25th of September. So we're going to try and do that. And so now I'm sort of in talks with Katie and with the manager as to how we do that and keep everyone safe.
Yeah, if there is distanced gigs, so this has come up a few times. There's the issue of if it's already a sold out show, then you can't give half the people their tickets back, and or you'd have to do 2 nights or something. I suppose maybe has that been considered? If it is a distanced show, how is they're looking to continue with that, and what would it look like?
You know what? I don't know the answer to that. It's a good question, and I'm wondering because obviously looking at every day, signed up to all the industry updates as to what's happening in each country, and what are the current government guidelines. And some of her demographic of our audience are older as well. And as far as I can see, I think it's going to be younger crowds that will go back to concerts sooner than older audiences for obvious reasons. So,
yeah, that's why I thought it might be an interesting one with Katie, that a lot of people would just say, well, we're not going to bother, we don't want to play. If it was half or a third of the audience seated or whatever it is, it's just not going to look like how it should be. But maybe with Katie's audience and that type of show, the show must go on kind of mentality, that actually there is maybe a point in doing those, and the audience will enjoy getting out to those environments.
Well, you know, there's something else that may or may not happen, and so the chanting hippies that I mentioned, if we can get to Moscow in October, they're going to do their Moscow show, and they play a massive venue there, Crocus Hall. And I mean, the thing with their concerts is the whole audience sings. And I know some of the British government guidelines is no singing. Because obviously singing, you're projecting and and I guess that will also rule out hugging, because there's a lot of that happens at their concerts as well. I don't know, but things change quickly in both directions, it seems to me. I mean, to be honest, I don't think that proper touring will be happening until next summer. I think it's as bad as that. I think even spring might be a bit shaky. I hope to God it's next summer. If it isn't, I think maybe
just pockets of distanced shows with the acts that adhere, that kind of work with that environment. So on to your next angle. So this has led to, during this time, you've set up a support group or network. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've got two things that have come out of COVID. So what happened first of all is when lockdown really kicked in, I was in a mess. I was really depressed. I felt really disconnected. I just could not see where this was going. And that, coupled with both me and my partner had the illness in March.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and we did antibody tests in April, and both came back as positive. We bought private tests.
Okay.
So I wasn't in a good place mentally, and I went online and I was looking for, I thought what I need to do is I need to talk to some people that understand what I'm talking about, and people saying, well, it's not so bad, we'll be back soon. And I was thinking, not what I do won't be, even then we knew this was going to be a year.
Yeah.
So I needed to connect with some people. So I was looking online. I couldn't find any UK-based support groups.
Yeah.
And then I hit upon a US Zoom group for an incredible charity called Backline Care. And I saw that they were running twice weekly Zooms. So 2 months into lockdown, I started joining their meetings, and I'd stay up late. It's like, at that point, it was like started at 10:30, and I mean, I don't know what's happened to it, but in lockdown, I've been going to bed at 9. That's like 10:30 is a late night.
Mm-hmm.
And I would stay awake and drink a lot of tea, which they all still laugh at how much tea I drink.
Mm-hmm.
They have a psychologist and a psychotherapist who sort of facilitates their groups, and it's a real open forum, and there's a core of about sort of 12 plus people who were there, and I got so much support from being part of their group, sometimes talking, mostly listening, and realizing that across one side of the pond to the other, we've all got the same issues and the same worries.
And it was a music one, was it? Was it specifically music? Yeah.
So Backline Care is specifically for touring music crew.
Yeah.
So it's not for artists, although artists can join if they want to. And there's a singer on the group actually, but they're more aimed at crew. And that really appealed because, again, when I was looking at a lot of the UK stuff, I could find there is more and more stuff out there for artists, which is vitally important. But I always think crew get left out of some of this stuff.
Well, when we've been looking at the numbers, the trickle down and the number of people it affects, those guys are going to be the worst hit through all of this. And it's good to me personally as well. I'm doing these is my own therapy, and helping just chat to people in the same situation as yourself. You might, even if you think you're coping okay, when you chat to someone who's in the same boat, it instantly makes you feel a lot better, I think.
Yeah, it's connection, and especially in what we do, connecting with other people, even if it's through Zoom, that's what we have. Well, hey, that's better than nothing. So anyway, I took part in their group for a good month, 6 weeks, and I was already thinking within a couple of weeks, I want to start something like this in the UK. I think we need something. Yeah. And it took me a month to get the guts up to put myself out there, because it felt very much like having to admit that I'd been struggling. It felt quite hard to do that. So there I was, putting a post on Facebook, and I found a few events groups and touring groups and joined their closed groups, and then put out a post saying, I'm thinking of starting a peer support group. I'm feeling disconnected and disempowered. Does anyone else feel like that? Is this something I should do? And 50 people messaged me. So then, of course, you think, wow, okay, so we started, and it's been amazing. And we've got people from, there's a fair amount of Brits, we've got a whole bunch of Europeans, we've got a heavy Scandinavian contingent, a couple from the US, someone from Canada, and we've got all sorts. We've got people just starting, brand new to this industry, and they've just lost their first big festival job this summer or whatever. And then we've got some seasoned pros, and it's just something about hearing people from across the planet are going through the same things. It's kind of wild. It's just hugely comforting, and I have been kind of blown away with the amount of interest it's had. And through that, I'm suddenly connected with Music Support, who are an amazing charity, and Cowshed, who run this podcast thing called Tech Check, where they have sort of industry people on it, and I might be going on that soon. It's kind of like, and it's just been really interesting and really amazing finding out that there is this new push to worry about how people are mentally in this industry. And I mean, this has to carry on much longer than what we're going through now. But I think now people have got time to think about this stuff. And I hope the positive that comes out of all this shit that's been happening is that we have all had a chance to stop and take a breath and figure out, okay, what needs to be done differently? What needs to change here? This whole experience, you know, like suddenly the world has been paused on its pivot. There has to be some good that comes from this. That would be my dearest wish.
And the question is if it carries on, if these platforms and the support groups carry on afterwards. Yeah, and we hope that they are. Again, there's a lot of chat about how people have been really friendly and supportive to one another, and we hope that sticks around and that it doesn't become a survival of the fittest fight afterwards when the first gig opens and everyone rushes to get there first. Yeah, fingers crossed. I think it's fantastic, really, really good. So so crew and production and all those guys, I was saying, the number of people affected is enormous. And so you've set up another a project.
So yeah, I think a lot of people are poised, waiting for this new thing. I mean, as people find that they're not going to be touring this autumn, and the reality of them having a live concert in front of an audience is sort of disappearing fast, and meanwhile, people still release albums, still want to connect with their fans, still want to stay relevant. And obviously, we thought at the start of the summer, driving concerts, they're a good idea. Well, that hasn't quite worked out as planned. VR as well. There's been some VR projects, which amazing, great, early stages, but really expensive. And then the other alternative is live streaming. And obviously, we had at the start of lockdown, lots of artists taking the initiative, doing sort of lo-fi stuff in their kitchen, filmed by their mum or whatever. And some of that was really good. Some of the content wasn't so great. Some of the quality wasn't so good. And then what's kind of come out that was, well, I have to mention this amazing Laura Marling concert that happened. That was the first kind, or one of the first real efforts to produce a sort of high production value quality events that you have to buy a ticket for. But in return for that, you get something that's much more beautiful and well thought out, and you're part of an audience, albeit an online audience scattered who knows where. Well, live is such a massive part of an artist's revenue. You know, that's probably the biggest share of their income, and it's gone. So whether you're an artist, and if you're crew and that's what you do, you work on people's live shows, well then suddenly there's nothing. So what happened was, production manager I was working with last year, we were trying to put our heads together to think, what can we do to create some work out of the current crisis? And then we hit on the idea of, it was like watching what's happening with streaming and thinking, I think this has got real mileage, because with streaming, it's viable for this year. It's going to be probably a large part of how people might watch their favorite artists. But even beyond that, once we do start going, back to concerts, there's still a space for streaming, because, again, for artists, there's a lot of tour speak now, but you cover as many territories as you can, where you think you can sell tickets, but there's always places you can't get to. And likewise, there's always people that can't come to your concert. They might love to see you perform in Madrid. They need somewhere that's fully accessible, and the venue you're playing at isn't, or it's got so much mileage in it.
They can sit side by side going forward, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, it's potentially more revenue. So even if the social distancing thing does stick around for a while, I don't see any reason why it couldn't, run, like you say, side by side. Because it's about community, isn't it? You don't want to just sit there on your couch at home and watch. You want to be in the chat room. You want to see who else is here that I know. Maybe 3 or 4 of your mates are also watching it, and you're messaging them as well. And that's what I think will bring it alive. And what we set up was a cooperative. The other thing that was going on was some of the initial projects that were out there. Some of the studios set up streaming spaces, and they are so expensive. They're high end, but they're crazy expensive, which then immediately means a lot of artists, unless you're really high level and can guarantee a huge amount of ticket sales, they're priced out of that. And we were thinking there's got to be a way to bring the price down. And so it helps artists who obviously they've got to know they can sell some tickets, but it brings down the level of how many tickets they've got to sell. So what we have is we've got like a cooperative, and what our message, our ethos is, if you like, we're not for profit. Any revenue basically makes a contribution to the equipment. Artists only pay for the equipment that they use, so it's like a pick list, like a shopping list. So it's bespoke and it's individually priced up. And then we have use of Millennium Studios, which is a massive full production studio where arena artists do a lot of their production stuff before they go on the road. So there's rigging space and there's a huge amount of space, and there's also a COVID testing facility on site. That whole area is very up to speed with what needs to be done to be kept clean and safe and social distancing. And as I say, so it's a contribution for the equipment, and we pay crew rates. So any crew that are employed by us get proper crew rates. And that was always something we were really keen on, because obviously the big fear now for a lot of crew is if artist fees are reduced, and that's a big concern, because what it means for crew is probably a drop in day rates, probably less crew, which means you'll be getting paid less, but you'll be expected to do more. And that has a knock-on effect to your stress levels and your mental health.
Collective sessions, it's called, isn't it? Have you done any sessions yet, or is this are you taking bookings now?
The next month is going to be very telling, because, I mean, again, talking to sort of various different management companies and production managers, where is this going? How much? It's risky business at the moment, thinking about investing money in something. Are people going to buy tickets to an online thing? And then, when you think of like, okay, I would have reached this many people by doing my tour. What percentage of that will equate to those that will then buy a ticket to see you online?
Again, it's another really, really great project. Well done for saying that. How many of you are involved in that then?
So there's me, there's our production manager who's been a video crew chief for Metallica and Bon Jovi, and we've got then a filming company, RCM, then we've got an audio company, which again we deal with one guy, and then a lighting company who I originally met back in Big Chill days, so I've known them a long time, and we're dealing with 2 of them. But it becomes as many people as can be gainfully employed, depending on what the setup is. Something very intimate, or if it's something much bigger than that with a fuller scale production. But
you think it's accessible to all levels?
Yeah, totally, because it's a huge space, and it can be set up to be whatever you want it to be. I mean, it's bigger than anyone else's, but it gives possibilities because of that.
Thank you very much, Suzi, for doing this. Amazing, really good, great areas of support there that you've been involved in, and I'll put the links in the threads so people can look those up or spread the word as much as possible. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.